their own newly minted spouses. One particularly tender picture caught Radhi's attention. The groom held a spoon in one hand and a tissue in the other as he gingerly fed his bride, while she held up the huge, ruby-studded gold nose ring that covered her mouth. Her eyes were shut as she savoured the food. She'd most likely fasted that morning, and this was probably the first bite of proper food she'd had all day. But it was his face that Radhi was looking at. His mouth was slightly open, and his eyes were bright with wonder, as if he simply couldn't believe his good fortune. Radhi felt a dull ache in her heart, and she was glad it wasn't more painful than that. She had a similar photo with Bedi, her ex-husband, on their wedding day. For a long time after her divorce, Radhi had found it impossible to look at other people's wedding albums without a pang of bitter envy. But that was many years ago. Now that unhappy marriage was behind her, and she and Bedi were good friends, like they should have stayed in the first place. "Bhavna Ben?" Radhi turned around to see the receptionist address the woman on the couch. "Kiran Ben is free to see you now." The woman got up without a word or a glance at the receptionist and walked down the corridor, her whole demeanour stiff and angry. Radhi looked at the receptionist curiously. The young woman gave her a small, embarrassed smile. Just then the phone rang, and she picked up the receiver and spoke into it for a moment before getting up. "Come, ma'am," she said, addressing Radhi. "Sarla Ben is free now." She led Radhi along a corridor flanked by cabins with frosted glass doors, which went straight down some distance before curving like a P into an open area with 4 desks in the centre. The receptionist led her to the largest cabin. Sarla Seth was one of those rare, small women with a personality so big it could fill the entire room. Her voice booming and permanently hoarse, her hair long, loose, reaching well below her hips, and the bindi on her forehead gigantic and magenta-coloured. Each aspect of her person had a presence all its own. And yet there were but mere side notes to the woman. She was dressed in a cream organza sari with a loud print of peach roses and a matching sleeveless blouse. On anyone else, the meticulously colour-coordinated outfit would garner comment, but with Sarla, one barely noticed. It was the woman alone you paid attention to. Sarla beamed when she saw Radhi, getting up to embrace her before holding her at arm's length to examine her from top to toe. "Just look at you. It's been what? 10? No, 12 years since I last saw you at your sister's wedding? You've grown into a carbon copy of your mother." Radhi smiled and allowed herself to be kissed on the cheek. In reality, with her broad forehead, wheatish complexion and slender 5'8" frame, she looked more like her dad. But she did have her mother's sharp nose, and when she wore a nose pin like she was doing today, people often told her that she reminded them of her mother. Radhi's parents had died in a car crash when Radhi and her sister, Madhavi, were just teenagers. Sarla had been a close friend of their mother's, and over the years she'd kept in touch with the girls. "May I send something in?" the receptionist asked. "Some tea or coffee?" Sarla looked at Radhi, who answered, "Tea for me, please." "Me too," said Sarla. "Oh, and Juhi, did the printer repair fellow come?" "They've promised to send by tomorrow, ma'am," the young woman replied. Sarla nodded. "And what about Amy Goradia's photographs? Did his mum send new ones?" "Yes, they're better than before." "Good. I told her the Leaning Tower of Pisa was not the point of the photograph. Her son was." Juhi grinned as she shut the door. Sarla turned her attention to Radhi and shook her head. "It's the funniest..."